All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be making evening videos more so for practice. This first year is really just a bunch of practice, so that's the little SI secret of what's going on here. But recently, I started rewatching One Piece. I've been following this. It's a fictional story manga, right? Anime. I've been following it from a distance from a little while, just looking at summaries because it's always fascinated me. But recently, one of my good friends actually convinced me to watch this long ass show. Right, it's like over 1,000 episodes, and I'm at the very beginning. But I've been watching it over the past few days. And one thing that I am starting to appreciate and find and feel a great deal of gratitude towards is how this show really inspires me personally to go after like my most childish of dreams, right? Because the premise of the show, it's fictional, but the premise of the show is that there's one main character who is going after this really big dream, like in classic anime fashion, right? He has this very over the top dream, and in the process of him pursuing his dream, he's basically inspiring everyone else around him to pursue their dreams, right? They don't have the same dream as him, right? One wants to be like a swordsman, the best swordsman. One wants to be the best navigator in the world and be rich. One wants to be a doctor, like a world-class doctor, right? So they all have dreams that are different from the main characters. But through watching this main character go for his dream again and again, they're basically inspired in this story to basically go after theirs while helping him go after his, right? Very double deciding, right? Now, one thing I wanted to do is just break down what this is from an OP standpoint. I believe that this show, although it's a very extroverted show, I think it's a very energy dom show, very exciting, but I believe that the show or the manga One Piece really embodies what OP means by introverted functions as opposed to extroverted functions. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through that, and then hopefully do a brief conclusion at the end as to how this is impacting me. I think I'm grateful that I'm watching it now, despite how long it is. So let's start off with some definitions. Okay. So starting off, let's define what introverted functions and extroverted functions are. So this is coming from the Introverted and Extroverted Defined video. This came out last month. So I'm grateful for David Chan for that. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully get that definition ready for you guys. I kind of want this to go away. I don't know how to get rid of that little bottom spot, but hopefully you can read this. So an introverted function is defined as having a way or stacking, basically meaning that they double down on their decision, basically. They subjectively pick a point of view and then stack it over time. And they are unaware of the hierarchy spectrum, meaning that they don't really know where their decision or their observation, in the case of OI, they're not really concerned with how this appears or how this ranks amongst other people, right? So for example, in the case of One Piece, the main character's dream to become, he calls it the Pirate King or whatever. He is not concerned with whether that makes sense to other people. He doesn't care how crazy that dream is compared to other people's dreams. He's not comparing his dreams to anyone else's. He's just stacking his goal of, hey, I'm going to become this, big thing. And every decision he makes, the reason they call it stacking is every single decision he makes, it has to be aligned with that overall vision, right? Every single decision he makes. And if you watch it or if you're even somewhat familiar with anime in general, you'll know what that's like. Now, compared to that is the extroverted function, right? So the extroverted function is open to the spectrum, channel changing, meaning they get distracted by new options, and they never narrow down. So the desire to take in more options and points of view, and they sort out the hierarchy spectrum. Basically meaning that, so as compared to what I would consider the main character's introverted DI, right? Saying, hey, I want this dream no matter what. This would be the type of person who would, oh, shut the hell up, Dave. This would be the type of person that would basically rank other people's dreams, but not go after their own. This would be like almost like a commentator on the sidelines, commenting about, oh, wow, like his dream is pretty crazy compared to that person, right? Like the commentators or the pundits, right? This would be kind of what an extroverted function is doing, especially in the DE domain, okay? Now, one more thing that I kind of wanted to go over is how this looks like in specific versions, right? So there's two ways of being introverted, right? So there's the decision making, which is arguably more important, and then there's the observation making. I'm I'm not saying that this main character is pretty channel changing. He doesn't plan anything. In fact, I was watching an episode where he's notorious for not planning anything. But I definitely think that One Piece is a very DI heavy show, right? So DI meaning significance or an identity, right? So that basically means, let's combine the terms here. So they choose an identity at one point, right? Usually very early on in their childhood, right? 4, 5, 6. And then everything they do is moving along that identity. Okay, so again, let's go back to this cutie over here, right? The main character. He wants to be the king of the pirates, right? And interestingly enough, his backstory is he chose that at what, like 5 years old, 4 years old? He was very young at the time, right? He's like, I'm gonna be the best. I'm gonna find the biggest treasure. I'm gonna have a best crew. And F you, I'm gonna be the most free person on earth. And fuck all y'all, right? He didn't say all that. That's me adding a little bit of spice in there. But he's that committed, right? And he chose that at a very early age. Much like, let's use more real examples. If I'm not mistaken, what's that one fighter, dude, in the UFC? Hold up. UFC champions. I need to figure out what that dude's name is. But basically, there's one UFC champion that talks about how he was inspired at a very early age by Superman, of all things, to become a fighter. And Superman's fictional. And I'm almost positive. Oh, Anderson Silva. There we go. Anderson Silva is an example of someone who got very inspired at a very early age. And he was like, yeah, I just watched Superman one day and I was like, I want to fight like that. And he just went and became a UFC champion, decades later, right? And what's crazy is this is not, I don't think he's intuitive either. I think David Shane have kind of mentioned he's like SE or something like that in one of the Q&As. So even with people who are savior or lead OE or something like that, if they are savior consume, they will be stacking their identity somewhere, right? And even if they're wandering around like this main character does at the beginning of the story, even if they're wandering around and not sure how they're gonna get there, they're gonna commit to getting there, right? Like come hell or high water. Now, the other way of, stacking is more the observation. So this has nothing to do with decision making. This is more about, what information you go over, what information you trust. Now, OI, a good example of this would be, I'm trying to give you a really good example. David Allen, okay? David Allen is a guy who is known for business coaching. He's the one who came up with the Getting Things Done system. And his system is basically, come hell or high water, he always uses the same 5 steps to process anything, right? Everything has to go through capturing, clarifying, organizing, reflecting and acting on any piece of information. And until you do that, until you go with that observation, until you go with that chapter, he's not going to listen to you, right? Now, I'm not saying that One Piece is anything like that. I would call this a lead consume story, right? He's randomly going about choosing random adventures for himself, but he's still pursuing the Pirate King, but it's just in a chaotic way, right? However, what I would say is that the author, Achiro Oda, who's hella rich, by the way, oh my god, I would say that he is more a good example of OI, right? And so I'm going to give you actually a really good example of what I mean by that. There's an article, let me see if I can find it. I think I posted it on Discord at one point. But there's an article that talks about how long he's worked on One Piece, the show and the manga, really the manga. He started when he was in 1999. The show started in 99. And he basically has been working on it nonstop for the past 20 years, right? So if you want to look at this article, I'll put it in the description later. But basically, for the past 20 years, 20 plus years, he's been only sleeping from 2 to 5, right? So what the hell? Takes no time off and works on his manga for basically all his waking hours, right? And how this connects to OI is he is not gathering or consuming any information that doesn't have to do with his manga, right? This is a very OI pet project, in the words of Shan, okay? This is a guy who's committed to, let me master this information first, and then when I'm done with One Piece in about 10 years, then talk to me about some other bullshit. But until then, shut the hell up, right? That's the OI version of being, hyper introverted and going after your dream at all costs, right? Now, for me, let me switch to myself. Let me talk about myself for 2 seconds. For me, this has been extremely inspiring. not even just the show. I think the show gives a good NF vibe, but once I started digging into the actual author, right, Achiro Oda, as well as the level of success and the level of inspiration he's provided people over the past 2 decades, that's where I really started paying attention. And I'm like, man, I kind of want to have an effect like that. And that's kind of the one thing that I want to say about the introverted functions. I think the introverted functions are meant to not just inspire others, but they're meant to like encourage people to dream more, right? So as opposed to the extroverted functions that are gathering the external world, right? I would argue that the extroverted functions, the strength of it is that it gets you more in touch with reality, so to speak, right? Right. So in the case of OE, you're gathering the options that reality is giving you. In the case of DE, you're gathering the opinions and the perspective of other people, usually experts, hopefully, but at least you're gathering a perspective so that your decisions aren't far off. Let's say they're realistic in a sense. And that's important, right? But the value of introverted functions, I would say, especially DI, because it's known for inspiring, but I think for both DI and OI, is that even though they are unrealistic and sometimes larger than life, they basically, when they're done well, they inspire many people. And I would definitely say that One Piece is an example of a show that's been consistent, right? OI consistent, and has been inspiring people to at least pick up his manga, right? So let's look at some stats, or the most important stat. This man is making bank, okay? Let's just be real right now. Achiro Oda, this is actually as of 2019. I think as of 2021, he has sold, via One Piece, he has sold over 490 million copies, right? So to put this in perspective, I think it's this article in particular. There should be a chart showing like top sales, top literature of all time or something like that. Bear with me as it loads. But there should be a chart somewhere. I thought it was here. It might be still loading. But basically, One Piece at this point has sold more than War and Peace, okay? By Anna Karenina, I think it's Anna Karenina, if I'm not mistaken, or I forgot the author's name. But War and Peace, which has been around a lot longer than One Piece, right? And when it comes to it's challenging Harry Potter, which has sold 500 million books globally, and Dr. Seuss, which is a little bit higher. So this is a man that single-handedly, like, I mean, pretty much by himself, has inspired like millions of people and is, at least inspiring them enough to pay for it. This is not even to mention how many people are pirating this shit, right? Like, think about that. I'm not paying for his shit. I am now with the Funimation, but in the past I was totally, just going online and reading it for free, right? So this is a radical underestimate as to how many people he's influencing on a yearly or on a global basis, right? So for me, it's like, okay, if you're inspiring that many people, you must be doing something that is beyond what is realistic, right? And I mean, going back to it, I mean, One Piece is it's a fiction, right? At the end of the day, this is something that is dreamlike. This is a dream. This is about an adventure. This is about pursuing dreams at all costs and things like that. And, as silly as it is, as crazily animated as it is, I definitely believe that, at least in my life, but then at least, when it comes to these numbers, right? Numbers don't lie. He is definitely doing something that I believe that all introverted functions do when they're at their best. Namely, inspiring others to dream bigger, to go after things that are more unrealistic, in order to, just make the world a better and happier place, to be honest. And so, I guess in conclusion, I mean, first of all, I'm happy this man's making money, right? $200 million in net worth. I mean, he's not starving, okay? So I'm happy that's going on. But just circling all the way back to the introverted functions, I guess for me, especially with someone who has I'm double activated extroverted, so I have two extroverted saviors. This is something that as I watch the show, I guess I'm just inspired to try and do more introverted stuff, even if it doesn't, connect with the outside world immediately. And have a similar effect that Achiro Oda and One Piece are having on me and on the rest of the world, right? And then I guess the only other thing I want to say is, like, for any of you, whether you guys have savior introverted functions or demon introverted functions, I guess just appreciate how valuable your introverted world is, right? Not just for you. I mean, yes, you can have an oasis for yourself, but when it's at its best, it can inspire like millions upon millions of people to dream bigger, right? Much like One Piece is doing for me. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. So anyway, that's my little rant. I am like super happy that I started the show again, even though it's gonna be a long journey for me for sure. This is 1,000+ episodes that I got to catch up on, right? But I'm really glad that I have this now influencing me once again. And I truly hope that everyone, here just kind of goes after more of this like balanced, of course, but goes after and hopefully maybe even shares their introverted functions with the rest of the world, because that might be where that might be where people are truly inspired to make a change in their life. Okay. So that's it. That was about it. I'm gonna go back to watching. I probably might watch another episode and then call it quits for tonight. But I just wanted to share that with you all. Hope you guys are doing well. I am going to make some more fictional analysis videos. I do believe that someone recommended a few movies and shows for me to watch and break down. I think the next one I want to do is I think Sherlock. Sherlock was the one someone recommended to me. So, and I've watched Sherlock like multiple times, so I have a good understanding of like how to break it down in OP. I don't know where I'll be able to stream some snippets for you all, but I'll have to figure that out. But Sherlock is next. I think from a movie perspective, The Bourne Identity would be the next movie, because I like that movie a lot and I know a bit about it. And then, I have a running list. If you guys have any recommendations for movies, shows, if that you want to break down from an OP perspective, or you want some value out of that, definitely put it in the comments or just message me and I'll put it on a list, okay? So other than that, hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Take care.